Funding for Schaefer Illis is provided by
Squarespace, the sponsor of today's video. I forgot to write an intro for this one. But I mean, Smiling Friends needs no introduction. It's really funny. I like it, everyone likes it, but I don't think there's a clear consensus on how the episodes rank next to each other. Hell, I had no idea what my personal ranking looked like until I made this video. So yeah, here that is and stuff.
Disappointment in the game of life.
Dude, check the news. It doesn't matter what channel.
Dudes kissing.
I don't think there's a bad episode of Smiling Friends per se, but in my mind, there's a very clear weakest one, and that would absolutely have to be Mr. President. It's the only one I can point to and say that it has a significant number of flaws holding it back. With the biggest one of all being the fact that it has, bar none, the worst client in the series so far. This president guy is just completely charmless and unfunny. And I think they could have rectified that somewhat by having him animated in a unique style, but instead, he's a live-action human. I love when the show randomly uses live-action people for quick gags here and there. It's a really funny juxtaposition to the kooky cartoon characters. But when one of them is on screen for this long, it loses all of its comedic appeal. I just don't like this guy, and none of his jokes really landed for me. But what especially disappointed me here is the fact that they brought Mr. Frog back, only to barely use him. His montage of terrorism was by far the funniest part of the episode. And then that's kinda it for him. I think if Pim was on team this guy and Charlie was on team Mr. Frog the whole time, and they had a sort of civil war among the Smiling Friends, that could have been a really fun concept. But instead, Mr. Frog feels really wasted on this plotline. And there are other elements of the story like this secret society of worms that could be fun, but ultimately feel rushed since they're trying to cram a lot into just 11 minutes. There were some other funny moments, like the president accidentally launching a missile, or Glep's unintelligible explanation of why he voted for Mr. Frog. Again, it's not a bad episode, but it's easily the most flawed one of the lot.
Gee, it's kinda dark.
A Silly Halloween Special is a good episode, but it's very different from the others and not nearly as rewatchable. It's basically a horror short that follows Pim trying to escape a demon in these dark woods, and it works well enough for what it is. But it's not top tier horror or anything, nor does it have a lot of the comedic strengths of most of the other Smiling Friends episodes. I think that was probably intentional though, because the lack of jokes and consistent horror throughout most of the episode is precisely what makes the "is that fucking blackface" joke at the end land as hard as it does. Like, this thing terrified Pim out of his mind, and this is the resolution for how it's defeated? Chef's kiss of a joke. Just perfect. But yeah, outside of that ending, it's a bit forgettable. And the bookends with that live action guy especially did not land for me. They just felt like unfunny filler to pad the episode out to 11 minutes. Still good for what it is, but I can't really justify putting it much higher.
Very cool.
Very cool. Very cool.
My biggest takeaway from Charlie, Pim, and Bill versus the alien is that I've clearly watched way too much red letter media in my life, because even with significant filters applied, I could still distinctly pick out the cadence of Mike Stoklasa and Rich Evans' illustrious voices. It was an absolute delight to hear them, especially Rich since this was his first time on the show. Also, Jay was in this episode too apparently, but I didn't notice his voice. I'll put who he voiced on screen for your viewing pleasure. Aside from the novelty of hearing some hack frauds from Milwaukee as stop motion aliens, I think the episode was a little bit weak by the show's standards. It was interesting, there were some coolly animated sequences, but overall, a lot of the episode felt like it was missing that typical Smiling Friends brand humor. And I'm not sure why. It really came across at the beginning with the UFO watching guys, and the ending was pretty funny, but I didn't laugh that much towards the middle, and I thought the aliens were pretty lame antagonists, honestly. Like, I got more of a sense of Charlie being tormented just from that one bully in the Gwimbly episode. You'd think these crazy aliens would leave more of an intentionally negative impression. Like, I figured they were just pulling a prank on Charlie and Pim, and the planet was uninhabited. And sure enough, that's what happened. But I don't know, man. I just wanted something a little bit crazier and less predictable. Not the worst, but it doesn't have any top tier moments to really make it stand out.
The devil!
Charlie dies and doesn't come back is a pretty good episode, but I feel like it kind of peaks with Charlie and Pim's natural, realistic argument about Charlie's attitude at the beginning. It was the first time the show did one of these completely natural sounding arguments as a juxtaposition to the goofy character designs, and it really is a match made in heaven comedically. The rest of the episode has its moments. I like Jeremy. I like Charlie's grandma. I like when Satan gets pissed off at the use of Happy Holidays and his drink not coming with a straw.
Exactly what I wanted, actually. Cool.
It just feels a little lopsided though. Like we take a little too long to get to Satan, and the resolution where Charlie helps him smile is a little underwhelming. It's still got a bunch of funny moments, and I really like both the visual design of Hell and the stop-motion-y look of Satan himself. Plus, Gilbert Gottfried as God is maybe the greatest thing to ever happen to cinema. It's a good episode, but it drags in a couple areas, which isn't really something an 11-minute Smiling Friends episode should ever do. As a result, I definitely find myself returning to it less than other episodes. But still, not a bad time in the slightest.
Romeo and Juliet Seal. Movie.
I found The Boss Finds Love to be a slightly better Halloween special than season 1's, but only slightly. It's pretty different in the sense where a silly Halloween special's plot was a little simple and didn't have a ton of jokes, but this one is a lot more complex while also cramming in a lot of gags. As a result, it can feel a little rushed. Like this concept especially feels like it would have suited a 22-minute episode better. But again, not bad. All of these episodes are not bad, even the President one. It's a crazy consistent show. But yeah, this one isn't amazing. The boss's wife character is pretty forgettable, with most of the great comedy in this episode coming from Alan. The Dr. Monster bit is so underrated, dude. That just cracked me the hell up. As well as the way he pronounces Satan and his shocked face right after. There's some other fun gags and decent shots here and there, but mainly, I feel like the thing that overshadowed everything else in this episode was a certain cameo. I'm of course talking about the hilarious appearance of Jumbo. Oh, that Jumbo, oh man, what a character, oh my god. It was pretty funny when they got the guy who plays Chester A. Bum too, I guess. Hey, for some reason, I'm really in the mood to talk about today's sponsor now. Let's hear it for Squarespace. Squarespace is an amazing online website builder that enables you to create beautiful websites for your business or personal hobby. Start a completely personalized website with the new guided design system, Squarespace Blueprint. There are so many professionally curated layout and styling options you can use to craft a unique online presence tailored to your brand or business, and optimized for every device. Easily launch your website and get discovered fast with integrated, optimized SEO tools, so you show up more often to more people and grow the way you want. Running a business is so easy with Squarespace thanks to their simple but powerful payment tools. Accept credit cards, PayPal, and Apple Pay. And in eligible countries, offer customers the option to buy now and pay later with Afterpay and ClearPay. These seamless checkout options allow you to easily sell exclusive content on your site. And so does the ability to add a paywall to sell memberships or courses, or sell files your customers can download, like PDFs, music, or ebooks. Check out squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/ShadeForAList to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Woo! That was a fun 8 minutes, give or take. Oh yeah, overall the conflict is resolved in kind of an anticlimactic and rushed way that isn't super funny, and I think the post-credit scene was honestly my favorite part of the episode. It was nice to bring Satan back and have some continuity, considering Charlie didn't mention, oh yeah, Satan, I met that guy, at any point. A relative mixed bag of an episode, in the sense that I still think it's extremely funny, and overall really good. But I just wish the plot had more time to breathe.
No fighting!
Brother's Egg is a weird one for me because it has multiple instances of some of the best gags in the entire show. And yet, it doesn't quite coalesce into a top-tier Smiling Friends episode for me. Let's start with those aforementioned banger jokes. The Jared Fogle gag was hysterical. From the way he eerily steps out of the shadows, to the reveal of Glep underneath the mask, to Charlie getting more upset than he'd ever been at the time. I think that's what really sells the gag, just his sheer anger and contempt for Jared Fogle. It's probably one of the best jokes you could make about a horrible person, and it's followed up by the dog face and Charlie's inexplicable adoration of it. It's so funny when the roles of our main duo get reversed. Like for Pim to be the one to flatly say, "Let's go, Charlie," after Charlie gets taken in too much by something goofy. That just cracks me up. The rotoscoping on the Joel guy is also hilarious. It makes for one of the most epic fight scenes in anime history. I like the goofy little concept of this restaurant they go to with the flying dudes, and my favorite gag in the whole episode has got to be Spanish Pim and Charlie. Like, this is the kind of nonsense humor I live for. And the fact that it's completely pointless since Professor Psychotic understands what they're saying honestly makes the joke twice as funny. It's such a damn great comedic episode. But the thing is, I just don't think the characters in this episode really clicked with me like the clients in the best episodes do. Professor Psychotic has his moments, but he doesn't really stand out compared to other side characters with an incredibly similar voice. And the rotoscope guy is a marvel on the eyes, but not really all that funny to me. Everyone loves that extended argument scene they have, and I definitely laughed at it a couple times. But I also feel like it just goes on a bit too long, which isn't something I can normally say about the hilarious, realistic dialogue scenes in this show. It's a great episode with some all-timer gags, but I just don't know if it all comes together for a truly incredible episode for me.
Catch up?
Yeah, that's great. Good work, guys.
I wasn't too hot on who violently murdered Simon S. Salty at first. I think when I first watched all of season 1, I singled it out as one of my least favorites of the season. I mean, I guess mathematically it still is one of my least favorites, but that's only because I like the other episodes more. In truth, this one really grew on me. It's an off-the-wall murder mystery with a hilarious conclusion. All of these funny little mascots tried to murder Salty, but since he already died of a heart attack beforehand, technically none of them did, and they can all go free. A nice, wholesome, happy ending after an investigation filled with insanity. I think my initial problem with the episode was that you never really have a chance to get to know any of these fast food freaks, since we only have 11 minutes and they gotta interview all of them. But weirdly enough, the more I rewatch this one, the more they all leave a distinct impression on me. Ketchup's line deliveries are fantastic, Salt and Pepper are genuinely sweet aside from the murdering thing. I see the Fun Twins story every time I close my eyes to sleep at night. It's great. I also have to give a special shout out to the Century Egg. I think about his delivery of cool f***ing backstory a lot, as well as Charlie's,
Oh yeah, we will definitely go to China to bury you, man.
The obvious sarcasm in his voice is honestly made even funnier by the post-credit scene where they actually do go to China to bury him. Really top-notch stuff. Overall, a great comedic episode, though definitely not really compelling as a murder mystery. There's basically no investigation involved, and the solution is handed to them thanks to that videotape. This isn't really a huge deal, but considering how the show dabbles in horror sometimes, I could also see a version of this episode that really fleshed out the investigation and overall mystery, but that would probably have to be longer than 11 minutes. I feel like that's just a recurring flaw with a lot of these episodes, to be honest. The 11-minute form factor makes for great bite-sized fun, but some of these plots definitely could use some extra runtime to breathe. Ah well, this is still a great one, and I like it a lot more than I did initially.
So long, Shrimp!
Shrimp's Odyssey is pretty straightforward in terms of its premise, but it executes everything incredibly well. Much like the pilot, Charlie and Pim are tasked with helping someone who's kind of a loser. It's pretty hard to sympathize or get invested in Shrimp as a character, but that doesn't really matter because he is one of the funniest voices out of anyone in the show. I'm obsessed with the way he reads off the numbers of the level he just got in Mouse Quest. Just so good. Charlie's attempts to help him are solid, but I find myself enjoying the Pim subplot a lot more, where he gets smitten with Shrimp's ex-girlfriend and we see his innocent, wholesome fantasy of the family life he wants to have with her. He really is such a good little being in a rough, chaotic world. And we get to see said goodness shine through when he does the right thing and reconnects Shrimp and Shrimpina. Except it turns out this isn't Shrimpina because Pim got the wrong cafe because he needs his eyes checked, which was teased at the beginning of the episode. Full circle, baby. It's a funny reveal that's only bolstered by the ensuing grilling Pim gets from Charlie, which is hilarious and feels like a microcosm of the upcoming Brazil episode. Everything works out, of course. Maybe a little too well, considering how normal of a character Jennifer is, before she reveals Shrimp is exactly the kind of man she's looking for. I'd be okay with how illogical it feels if it was an extremely funny ending, but it's only kind of funny, I don't know. Still, a really good and enjoyable episode. You get strangely wrapped up in Pim's hopes and dreams. The number 15 guy was funny. Shrimp's voice is the greatest thing to ever grace my eardrums. And who could forget Smormu, the 5th smiling friend? Smormu clears Jumbo so hard it's ridiculous. If you're a Jumbo fan, I feel sorry for you. Your goat is washed. Have fun trying to return that $600 fake knife you bought from him, asshole.
Whoa, this is trippy.
Man, f*** Mr. Boss. He was always my least favorite of the main characters anyway. I just never really found him as funny as the others. But when he fired Tyler, ooh, that tears it. After everything Tyler did for this company, he just gets unceremoniously tossed aside like that. I hate this asshole. I'm glad his son temporarily died. Anyway, aside from that horrible first action he performs in this episode, the magical red jewel, aka Tyler gets fired, is one of his better appearances. He and Pim go to Spamtopia, which just has the best visual design out of anywhere in the whole series. series, completely nauseating MS Paint garbage all over the place. It's just so memorable and captivating. This is probably the most overtly internet-inspired area in all of Smiling Friends. It's not the sort of thing a showrunner with a healthy, functioning brain would ever come up with. The media offline fire, the terrible text-to-speech, the jump scare waitress lady. I personally still can't get over the way the Welcome to Spamtopia song abruptly ends with no last rhyme or anything. What an uncomfortable, incredible setting. The rule Pim breaks is really silly, and I especially love how the resolution is a callback to a seemingly throwaway line Pim had about having a pen pal. It's weirdly sweet to see them reunited, and the same is true for the boss getting over his xenophobia. On the more negative end of the spectrum, we have the girls fighting back at headquarters. I don't know, it's pretty interesting and funny to me that Charlie and Alan don't get along that much when you put them in a room together. Their subplot of trying to save the apparently dead son of the boss is pretty slight and nowhere near as good as the Spamtopia storyline, but it definitely has its fair share of fun moments. And the ending where Jason infests the office with lean juice is pretty great as well. Just what the hell was in the boss's manifesto? Maybe the world isn't ready to know yet. Pretty strong episode, even if I'm still mad about the Tyler bit, like come on. He was such an integral part of the show and he's just not in it anymore after this episode. I'm gonna be honest guys, I don't think I'm gonna watch season 3 if Tyler doesn't return. I've had enough of this show's shit.
You're going to Brazil!
After season 1 was seemingly done airing, we were graced with a brand new special episode. The Smiling Friends go to Brazil. Ooh boy, they're embracing that online meme about going to Brazil, but it's somehow not cringe when they do it. Oh me oh my, what sort of wacky hijinks are they gonna get into in the funny meme country? I can only imagine. Turns out Pim forgot to book the hotel and they spend the entire 11-minute episode arguing about what to do next to salvage their vacation. Now, that's what I call subverting expectations, baby. I remember this episode really pissed a lot of people off. And while I enjoyed it at the time, I was ready to rank it low compared to the others, cause it's kind of a one-trick pony. The joke is that they're having these realistic conversations and arguments about how to save the trip. Aside from the "are you a tourist" guy, that's pretty much all there is to this one. But I'm gonna be honest, rewatching this episode after a couple years, it truly, deeply captivated me. Like, I couldn't look away from the train wreck unfolding before my eyes. It was so uncomfortable, so true to life, and so thoroughly engrossing. What are they gonna do? Can they find another hotel in time? How are they gonna see the big Jesus statue at this rate? I think my favorite part of the episode is just how much it feels like the voice actors improv the entire thing in the studio. Like it might be the most true to life sounding thing I've ever heard in a cartoon, ever. And the cherry on top is when the boss, a character who always talks in a goofy manner in like every other episode, delivers his lines as flatly and normally as everyone else. Like that genuinely cracked me up. I don't know, man. It's crazy that an episode this purposely mundane can also be so riveting. It's kind of an awe-inspiring feat. The relative lack of jokes is what makes this one so funny. It's just a sight to behold. My girlfriend asked why didn't they just enjoy the beach for a couple hours and then get a flight home? Which, yeah, maybe they should have done that. Or at the very least, they should have eaten their fries. I don't know, man. That's the power of great art. It gets you talking.
Dancing is forbidden.
Pim finally turns green. I don't really get that title. He doesn't become green with envy at any point. Maybe it refers to the toxic waste the dandelions grow out of, but they don't turn Pim green. Alright, whatever, who cares? This is a great one. It somehow gives me the warmest feelings out of any of the Smiling Friends episodes. Like, not only are there multiple wholesome scenes where we get to see the whole gang bonding and getting along, but I got genuinely emotionally invested in Rotten the Snowman. He didn't ask to be alive, but now that he is, I wanted to see him find contentment and get over his existential dread. The stop motion on him looks great, of course. Plus, he's voiced by Dana Snyder, and Dana Snyder's voice is like the best thing ever of all time. It's really fun getting internet personalities to play characters in this show, but man, I didn't realize how much I was craving a good, meaty character voice actor like Gazpacho himself. Additionally, despite being named after Pym, this was ironically one of the best Charlie episodes by far. It felt unfair how many great jokes they gave him in this one. The boss stand-up bit, his enthusiasm for and subsequent depression over Bill Nye, his hilarious speech in the ending, his insistence that he was gonna punch the Yeti. Speaking of which, oh my god, that Yeti was the funniest part. I'll tell you what, that Yeti should do stand-up. It's pretty impressive how this one has multiple lengthy comedic back and forths that work, while also managing to tell a solid, tragic tale of the nature of life and death. I saw that guy knocking the cooler over from a mile away. And when it finally happened, it was simultaneously so funny, but so sad. Similarly, the ending bit where Rotten is reincarnated, the boss hangs 10, and even Bill Nye's ghost shows up for more as Charlie gives a speech about his friends and values, is both a great parody of corny happy endings, and a legitimately nice ending in its own right. I laughed, I cried, it moved me, Bob. I'm excited to see what season 3 has in store now that Mr. Frog is president and Rotten is the ocean? The entire ocean? The planet, maybe? Or is he just that wave? I don't know. Do you think Bill Nye's ghost is gonna come back next season? Mr. Frog is just quintessential classic Smiling Friends. The episode that not only showed us that the pilot wasn't a fluke, but gave us one of the most memorable and iconic clients in the entire series. I am obsessed with his stupid design and stupid voice. They are legitimately some of the funniest things I've ever seen. Hello, but I'm not sorry. I love that it's an episode about cancel culture, but it's taken to such a hilarious extreme that it isn't really trying to say anything about it. Just make you laugh as one of the most heinous villains to ever grace the entertainment industry inexplicably wins back his fans by doing the exact same thing that got him canceled in the first place. The plot works because Mr. Frog doesn't resemble people who get canceled in the real world for things that are decidedly not funny. I mean, I guess besides the thing he said on Jimmy Fallon, but I'm more so talking about the eating people bit. Everything this guy does is just cartoonishly malicious, all as his demeanor remains laid back and dopey, which is what makes this plotline so hysterical and not cringe. I feel like they were trying to say something in the B plot though, with Mr. Frog's show producer trying to get Gleb to cut out the mildly toxic spitting maneuver he does. It's not really subtle when he looks at the camera and says, "It's Mr. Frog without all the toxic crap. I truly saved the show." But I do think there is something to be said about overcorrecting and completely sanding off the edginess of older media. I'm all for shows stepping away from blatantly hateful and offensive humor, but a bit of edge for the sake of comedy can be a good thing in a lot of cases. I could definitely see how the audience at the new Mr. Frog show would react with such fury at how sanitized the show has become. And the irony of this guy wanting a toxicity-free show, but hitting Gleb, isn't lost on me either. Yeah, this guy sucks. I'm glad Mr. Frog ate him. I probably spent way too long talking about the messaging of this episode and not its actual humor, but like, do I need to explain why Mr. Frog is so funny? The character is great, the Jimmy Fallon laughter is great, the design of Mr. Frog's stupid mansion is great. Everything comes together into an absolutely fantastic episode. I like the part where he ate the bug.
Email me if you want a pizza roll.
Ah, Desmond's big day out. The one that started the whole thing. I remember when this dropped in 2020 and it captured the attention of the entire internet. And then that was it for 2 years. We just patiently waited to see what else this kooky looking show had up its sleeve. All thanks to this strong first impression. It's as simple as it gets. Charlie and Pym meet a really depressed guy who sounds suspiciously like Mr. Plinkett.
You know, they make a magic potion that makes you forget about the Phantom Menace when you drink it. It's called bleach.
And they do all sorts of random things to try and get him to smile. It really captures the essence of what the show is going to be about, without adding any gimmicks on top of that. It's pretty novel to go back to and see the comparatively rougher animation style, and slightly different voice for Alan.
My precious piece of cheese has gone missing.
But it absolutely still holds up to the standards of the more modern episodes. Some of the bits are a bit of a miss, like I don't know a single person who enjoys the boss breastfeeding one. But the concept of an amusement park themed around Dave, who's just some guy, is a really fun one. And we mustn't forget the show's first hilarious use of rotoscoping with the "go home to your family" guy. Speaking of Family Guy, it's nice to see some good old-fashioned values in such a crude cartoon, since despite holding a gun to his head all day, a genuinely hilarious visual I might add, Desmond's story is a happy one in the end, thanks to his intersection with Alan's quest to get his cheese back. Which might be my favorite part of the episode, honestly. He just wanted his cheese. That poor soul. But I love how the A and B plots collide here and allow Desmond to find his purpose in life as an exterminator. It really goes to show that despite how crude the show is, it's not cynical and doesn't give its characters unfortunate endings if they don't deserve it. It's weirdly sweet to see Desmond turn his life around. And he's overall a fantastic first client to demonstrate what the Smiling Friends do. Or maybe that's just my excitement at hearing Mike Stoklas's voice on national television talking. A deeply inspired casting choice that shows right away how much these guys understand the internet and its culture. Overall, a fantastic taste of the show that would take over the internet in a couple years' time. It was great as a standalone pilot, and it's still great next to the other episodes.
You've done it, Gwimbly! You've saved the creamed corn factory!
Gwimbly Definitive Remastered Enhanced Extended Edition DX 4K Anniversary Director's Cut is one of those episodes that just took the internet by storm. Not only was it the first new Smiling Friends content we had gotten in 2 years, but it just really struck a chord with gamers who are sick of their favorite franchises constantly being mismanaged and neglected. Gwimbly can be seen as a stand-in for so many different series. Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, Banjo-Kazooie, Rayman, just take your pick. And the CEO in this episode has kind of become the unofficial mascot of terrible real-life gaming CEOs. If one of them makes a publicly bad decision, you better believe images of this nugget-dunking motherfucker are getting spammed in the replies on Twitter. They just really hit the nail on the head with the main conflict of this episode. It's frustratingly true to life. But even without the real-world comparisons you can make, it's just a fantastic episode in its own right. Gwimbly is a likable and sympathetic client, and you really want to see him turn his life around. The animation and tinny audio on him is just stellar, and every bit they do with him works. From the cameo he films in front of an inexplicably live-action Smiling Friends office, to his encounters with his old villain and discovery of Mr. Millipede's fate. It's a consistently fun, yet also tragic tale. And what makes it even better is the fact that instead of Charlie, they pair him up with my favorite character, Alan. This episode really makes you wonder how and why he became a Smiling Friend in the first place, considering how much he seems to resent helping people. But that's what makes him a delight to have around. His reactions to everything going wrong in Gwimbly's life are so cold and so funny. I just love the guy. Charlie, meanwhile, gets a bit of comeuppance for never wanting to do his job all that much, since by staying at the office, he gets saddled with a bully who makes use of the Smiling Friends "we shall never deny a guest, even the most ridiculous request" policy. Uh-oh. It's a decent subplot. Not one of the best ones, but a fine counterbalance to the A-plot. Overall, an outstanding, instantly iconic episode that I can't get enough of. I really love how the solution to the problem here is just for Gwimbly to join Smash Bros. It makes me happy because it implies that Banjo and Kazooie are probably content with where they are in life right now. I mean, it would be cool if they got a new game too, but oh well, I guess not. That's fine, okay.
My name is Mel.
My single biggest problem with season 1 of Smiling Friends is that it needed more Alan, since he's by far the funniest character on the show. Well, good news. Season 2 used him way more, not only from the get-go in the Gwimbly episode, but also in his own Odyssey, Alan Adventure. I mean, it's not exactly a great showcase of Alan as a character, considering how he's mostly just silently carrying out his mission to get these paperclips. But that hardly matters because of how consistently exciting, funny, and delightful this episode is. I really admire how it starts off so mundane, with Alan's great argument with a store guy, and the epiphany he offers that sweet old man with the paperclip nose, before everything immediately goes off the rails, and we bear witness to maybe the most impressive animation to ever come out of the show. DJ Spit's helicopter battle and Alan chasing after the pirates are both brought to life with such fluidity. And that's not even mentioning the excellent use of stop motion on the pirates themselves. And that's not even mentioning the sheer absurdity of a pile of bones in Bigfoot's cave coming to life in order to steal a box of paper clips. Like, this episode just does not let up. But its rapid pace is a boon rather than a detriment because of how simple the plot is. Alan just really wants this box of paper clips in particular, and he will go to any length to retrieve them. So the more lengths, the better, I say. And the absurdity of this quest is made infinitely funnier when we find out it was all orchestrated by the landlord. Like, this episode was already top tier to me, But this line right here is what enhances all of it to the point of being an absolute 10 out of 10.
The whole thing cost me $750,000 in over 8 months of planning.
He could have just used chloroform on Alan and brought him to the apartment to play Burnout Revenge on the PS2. But no, he did all this. A truly insane amount of work for no reason whatsoever. Because it's funny to us, the audience. This immediately endeared me to the landlord as one of the all-time best Smiling Friends antagonists. And that's before he even threatens to blow up the city with a bomb, unless Alan plays Burnout Revenge on the PS2 with him. I love how the game visuals, the weed, and the soda are all just real-life versions plopped in the animated world. Just oh man, what a picture. I'm a sucker for a good callback, so I love that the unique shape of the paper clips allows Alan to disarm the bomb. And then there's the iconic ending, with Alan receiving and awkwardly handing off the tiny Mr. Boss. Honestly, my one critique of this episode is that I wish the tiny Mr. Boss did a little dance. I don't know, it would make the inherent weirdness of the situation land better for me personally. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that other people appreciate the ambiguity of whether this fucking abomination is alive or not. So I guess that's fair. Overall, Alan Adventure is peak. My favorite episode of season 2, unless the final one is better. I'm writing this before the last episode has aired in order to get the video done sooner. But you'll know if the last episode of the season is better based on if it already showed up or not, so this point is irrelevant. Anyway, now for the 2 all-time greats. Or 3. I don't know yet.
I'm from Missouri, frowning to state sport.
Frowning Friends is just 11 straight minutes of some of the funniest gags and side characters you'll see in any cartoon ever. It's kind of insane how much every little bit of it works. Maybe the boss's insanity feels a little forced, but given what that leads to, I can't really complain. The plot is simple. So simple, in fact, that it allows the episode to have a perfect comedic flow. We don't need to waste time with Charlie and Pim thinking about what to do next. We just get to see what random, wacky characters they can help in order to counteract the nasty effects of Grim and Gnarly. Mwahahaha. One little bit of this episode I really like is how Pim and Charlie immediately realize that their evil doppelgangers are causing trouble with these people. Like, we don't have to waste time on them figuring that out. Charlie saying, "Oh, I see what's going on here," immediately is just really funny to me for some reason. But who cares about that when we have the all-star lineup of side characters? DJ Spit, the guy with the weird head who just inexplicably morphs into DJ Spit, and my personal favorite, the one and only 3D Squelton. Oh, boo-hoo! I'm genuinely obsessed with 3D Squelton. You guys have no idea. He might be my favorite side character in this entire show. And he even comes alongside one of my favorite jokes in the entire show, the helium bit. Like, genuinely, what other show would even think of a joke like that? It's so funny, and it's made even better by the fact that it makes you at home go, wait, is that actually true? It seems like we'll have enough for 100 to 200 more years. But like, if it's a non-renewable resource that we need for important shit like MRI machines, why the hell are we wasting it on balloons? I think we can all live without balloons, guys. Sorry, 3D Squelton, I have to step on your dream because MRIs are more important. Anyway, back on track. There are so many other great jokes in this. From Get Out of My Head, to the scene that apparently really pissed off nihilists, where Grim pisses his pants in fear, to the Puerto Rican joke, which I can't believe they pulled off. It's so out of pocket, but it works because it's the villain saying it, and nobody else is on board except for that one weirdo asshole. The show just consistently handles potentially offensive humor really well, but nothing compares to its wacky humor, which this episode arguably has the crown jewel of. The Renaissance Men. Everything about this joke is perfect. From the smooth and natural conversations Pim and Charlie have, to the way it bookends the story, to Pim's insistence that those aren't Renaissance men, that's a completely different era. Like, that's what he's hung up on, and not the fact that they just showed up and randomly killed 2 people. Oh, this show is so funny, good lord. Frowning Friends is a delightful tale of the overwhelming power of positivity and a bunch of medieval guys randomly showing up to shoot evil people with arrows. And it has 3D Squelton in it. So yeah, this was obviously a really strong contender for the overall best episode of the series. But for me personally, it falls just short of one other. Enchanted Forest is my favorite episode of Smiling Friends because it tells the most complete story. One filled with betrayal, resentment, repentance, and some of the most insane plot twists you could ever imagine. All without sacrificing the show's signature weirdness and wit. Frowning Friends is extremely funny, but it doesn't exactly tell a coherent story. More so, it's 11 straight minutes of gags loosely tied together by the thread of the Frowning Friends. But with this episode, we get to see Charlie and Pim's friendship tested to its limits for the first time. We get our tables turned as the often lazy and unenthusiastic Charlie finds himself taken in by the wonders of the forest, all while Pim finds out the place he wanted to experience since he was a child didn't live up to what he hoped it would be. And all of this is punctuated by the arrival of Mip, the anti-Pim, whose hilarious voice and fantastic animation that perfectly evokes the animated Hobbit film make for an instantly iconic and memorable side character. It's like actually compelling seeing Mip acknowledge and regret how he's coming between Charlie and Pim. Like, it's refreshing to not have this character be a douchebag who's intentionally trying to drive the heroes apart. And this pretty strong story doesn't come at the expense of great gags. Charlie's insistence that aliens aren't sci-fi, the witch's surprising skill with chopping, the campfire scene between Charlie and Mip, and of course, you kiss your dad on the mouth. I like how the essence of that scene became a meme. Not the quote itself, but just the way Charlie questioned that. It's so damn funny. All unfortunately falls to ruin when Charlie and Pim's bickering accidentally results in Mip's death. And so the two complete their mission without him, until the princess reveals the bombshell that Mip was a stalker the whole time, who sent her a bomb? Like, holy shit, I wasn't expecting that, even after his demonic death. I just thought it was like you weren't expecting him to die like that sort of thing. But no, dude was actually evil. And this accidental killing is what finally makes the princess smile. Honestly, I can't help but marvel at the story structure here. Not only does the twist work, but the fact that Pim and Charlie just inadvertently solved the princess's problem while on their way to her castle, it's just a pretty novel subversion, and I like how neatly it all works out. It ties into what I was saying earlier about Desmond. I love the fact that this show never makes innocent people suffer. The princess doesn't get blown up at the end just for shock value. She smiles, and that's that. The episode's over. Meanwhile, Mip turns out to be a creepy, murderous stalker, and so he dies. The show doesn't mind killing people off in horrible ways, but they always make sure they deserve it. Well, except Bill, I don't really know what he did wrong. But other than that, this episode in particular is a great example of how underneath the crudeness and the edginess, this show really does have a heart of gold. Charlie and Pim do legit help people. Desmond, Gwimbly, Shrimp, the princess. It's just nice to see them do good stuff. Dare I say, it makes me smile. For being both extremely funny and also telling a story that got me hooked, Enchanted Forest is my pick for the best Smiling Friends episode. So, yep, that was the ranking. I also forgot to write an outro for this one. Just play a funny clip from the show or something.
This TV's old. This TV's old.
I want McDonald's.
Oh, those Smiling Friends. They're so kooky and funny. Wow. This is the end of the video. Go home now.